Hello and welcome back in as we are bringing in now the 3A class preview here. We've got Duran Miller to my left, we've got Carson Ward to my right, and we're excited to talk about the 3A and excited to talk about what we feel like is probably, it may be the deepest conference in the state. Um, I'm going to reference this a lot. We have not released it yet, but our top 25 programs. When I did the top 25 list, Duran, one of the things that I saw about the 3A was the amount of just storied programs
Right.
that are in the 3A. And the fact is, when we put out our top 25 programs, there will be more teams from the 3A than any other conference. There will be more teams from the 3A than there were top 5, meaning that we will actually have more than 5 teams from the 3A in our
Right.
our top 25, which no other conference had it. So with that said, this classification is deep,
Yeah.
and it's one that I feel like is a little bit hard to prognosticate as well.
Anyways, you also had, like you mentioned, more five or more, and then there was a few more that didn't make the top 25 that were right there on the fringe as well. So, um, like you said, very tough to predict. Um, very deep, very deep. So it's gonna be fun to get into this.
Carson?
Yeah, if 3A has a lot of teams, they're like 4A. They've got what, five or six conferences in that class, and it's just always deep. And they've got uh, the thing with 3A2 is that it seems like there's a surprise state champion every year. It doesn't seem like there's one that you can just pencil in every year as the state champion. Last year, Salem got hot in the playoffs and surprised everybody after everybody and their grandmother thought Bismarck was a lock to win the state championship, especially after they beat Fordyce. And now we've got Salem coming back, bringing a lot back, but you also have Fordyce, who a lot of people think, including myself, is the most talented team in the field. So it's just gonna be interesting to see how that all shakes out this year.
Headline thoughts right now. We've got, as you said, Fordyce and Salem. I think those are two that you can throw at the top. We'll get into our rankings in just a moment, but then
Hmm.
some of the things that I think about. Number one, Boonville. They're going to be right in the mix. Charleston is probably going to make their best run at it this year for the first time in quite a while. Um, how good is Bismarck again with the loss of Keithley, bringing back Cademan Keithley?
Yeah.
But how good can they be at quarterback this year? Can they make another run? Those are the type of things that I think about when I think about the 3A.
Right. Losing Johnny Diaz, losing Ben Keithley.
Yes,
Um, I'm trying not to say the coach's name instead of the
right. Daniel Keithley,
yeah, Daniel.
DJ.
And then the mom's a play-by-play stadium announcer, so
Right.
it's a fun time down in Bismarck on Friday nights. But yeah, I mean, Caveman is a guy that if you haven't seen him play, I mean, he's not got the biggest stature, but he's kind of like a Ben Woodfield was last year in Mount Ida. That guy is 100% all the time. And Woodfield, you know, for everything he was, Caveman's probably when it comes down to just a 40-yard dash. I mean, Caveman's got him, I think, on that. But not taking anything away from Woodfield because he was just phenomenal and he hit the hole faster than anybody can hit the hole. And if you can do that out of the veer, you're going to get a lot of yards, and that's what he did. But yeah, Bismarck's got a lot of talent. Fordyce and Salem, Boonville's got that class that we've been talking about every year. Oh, that sophomore class, that junior class.
Right.
Well, now they're seniors. Rhett Needert and some of those other
Hunter
guys.
Warren.
Yeah, Warren. Um, they're just really talented, and I know they haven't ended up where they wanted to end up the last couple seasons. The goal at Boonville is always to win the state championship. You were talking about, I think it was you, Carson, talking about, every year seems like a different team. You could just go down the list and talk about teams that have just won state, and a lot of these have done it multiple times, but it's not every year. But you know, Boonville, Fordyce, I mean, Charleston,
Well, you can throw.
Glen Rose,
Well, you can throw
Rising,
Rivercrest in there
Osceola,
too.
even.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah,
because they've been in 4A, they've dropped to
that's
3A
true.
now, so you can throw them in the mix as well because they've played for 4A state championships as of recent. In fact, even as close as 2 years ago. So there's a lot of depth in the 3A
100%.
conference, and I keep saying conference classification. And we're going to go ahead and get to our top 10 right now. Um, and we will get that up here on the screen for you.
Need that
Our
back.
top 10 starts with defending state champions Salem, followed by Fordyce, Boonville. Those two met in the quarterfinals last year in a great ball game.
Hmm.
And then you had Rivercrest coming in. I mean, how can you not put Rivercrest in at the top or near the top? Prescott, number 5. Got some questions to be answered, but always
Hmm.
Prescott is one of the very top programs in the state. Charleston, Bismarck, Glen Rose. I know that we included Glen Rose when a lot of people have not included Glen Rose, but
That's a mistake.
yeah,
They got a lot coming
I
back.
agree. And they've got a very talented quarterback coming back as well. Osceola and Rising round out the top 10. And I mean, when you look at the depth of that top 10, I would say of all the classifications that we do, 1 through 10, you could put Salem and Rising together, and that's going to be a ball game. I don't know that you could put, and we won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but number 1 and number 10 and 4A and say that's going to be a ball game, or number 1 and number 10 and 5A and say that's going to be a ball game.
Oh,
But
you definitely can't once you get up past 4A.
right. So anyway, it's very deep here, and so we're going to talk about that. And let's go ahead and get to the 3A1, which you know, I think we say this a lot, especially with these conferences that are in the Northwest area. You probably don't get the respect that they deserve, but you've got 3 teams in it that are state title contenders. You got Boonville, you got Mansfield, and you've got Charleston. Those 3 right there, I think, are going to play deep into the state tournament this year, and all 3 of them are going to battle it out for conference supremacy. The one that comes out at the top probably won't have to go to a Fordyce in the quarterfinals. I know that Coach Doc Crowley talked about that with Boonville.
Yeah.
He just said, the loss to Mansfield was a tough one because not only did we lose to Mansfield, but then we had to go to Fordyce because of that loss
Right.
in the quarterfinals,
Kind
and
of
that
lingered.
and that made it tough. So anyway, the 3A1. Let's talk about it. Boonville, Charleston, Mansfield, those 3 are going to battle it out. Who do you guys like in those?
Yeah, so 3A1 is a conference that, they're going to have you could very well see the talent from that conference making a big impact on the rest of the class just because, you've got a school like Boonville there, they're in that conference, right? And
Yes.
so they're just going always going to have athletes. They've got a lot of tradition. They're one of those schools that plays out of state teams. They're playing
Hmm.
Poto, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, me and Duran had that conversation last year when I mispronounced it on the ranking show. But
Forgot about that till just now.
yeah, and then you have Mansfield, and you have Paris, who I believe most people think is going to be the 3 seed out of that conference, and so um, I believe no Paris isn't in that conference.
Yeah, they
Sorry.
slipped over. They're over in the 3A4
Yeah,
now. Of course,
sorry.
they got a lot of realignment
Yep,
out of there.
yep.
But go ahead.
And then Charleston, Mansfield. So you have the top 3 of Charleston, Boonville, Mansfield, I think, and
Yes.
people have kind of gone back and forth on whether or not they want or they think that Mansfield will take that 2 spot over Charleston, but Boonville seems to be the consensus number 1. And I know that Greenland had a quarterback last year in Slade Norwood who was really good, and he ended up transferring to Farmington. So that's going to be a big, a big hole that they have to fill. Hackett's a team that was always kind of in that bot, uh, bottom part of the playoffs
Hmm.
mix a little bit behind those other 3 that have been the powers the past few years. Uh, and so, of course, the Burtons over at Mansfield, that's always a big storyline. And then you have Coach Ricky May and their quarterback Carter Little at Charleston, and Coach May is I think one of the best in the
Right.
state. And so he's always going to have his team prepared. So it's going to be a it's going to be a fun conference to look at this year and see who gets those last couple playoff spots. But I do think that it's going to be Mansfield and Charleston battling for that 2 spot, and I think, in my opinion, Charleston will get it because I think Little is just an outstanding quarterback and Coach May is an outstanding coach. Not taking anything away from Coach Overton at Mansfield and
Right.
the Burtons that they have over there, all 6 of them.
Yeah, I
But
think some of them are gone now, but
yeah,
they still got a few.
right. So, But and then Boonville, I think, is just head and shoulders above the rest. Now that that class that they have, that they're so high on are seniors.
Yeah, but so Mansfield, I'll start with them. What they've done the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, has just been something that you really should just be proud of if you're from Mansfield. I mean, it's been fun to watch. They were right in a mix. They went into the playoffs pretty deep. You know, I think it was Salem that knocked them out last year, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly, which is a revenge top game. Mansfield, they played Bismarck week one. That's where we were, week zero, whatever it was last year. That was our first game of the year, and it was fun to watch them. They don't have a lot of depth. I know they went and played Lamar right after that, and stepping up in 4A. Mansfield's a great team to watch. I do think the seniors, we talked about Needard, we talked about some of the other guys at Boonville. It's their time to shine. Boonville is always tough. They're always extremely well coached, very disciplined. Um, they've just got a lot of weapons at the quarterback or running back kind of positions that can do a lot of things. They can throw it. They can, they'll surprise you and throw it, even though they like to run mostly out of it. They just got a lot of skill guys. Got a pretty good line coming back. They're my pick to win the 3A1. Um, I do like Charleston as well. Coach May, like you mentioned, Carson, um, one of the best in the state. I mean, and he, ironically, he played for Boonville, but he's just a great coach and got them kind of, they were real young 2 years ago. We did them against who do we have that now? Elkins, which of course Elkins was on fire at the end, and they struggled a little bit, but they kind of hit Elkins in the mouth early in that game. Excuse me. And that was a ball game going into the half, and then Elkins pulled away. But they were young then. They had that one running back. I can't remember his name. He was also a basketball player. That was really good for him. He got hurt a few weeks after that, but they they're now that sophomore class then is now seniors, and they definitely could make some noise there and possibly clip Boonville. But I do like Boonville there. Mansfield, I've got right behind Charleston. They've lost a little bit off of that team that was so good the last few years, but they're still good. Hackett's a team. They got to move in from Oklahoma. It's going to help them a little bit. They're trying to build that program back up. I was able to interview with them this year. They were a lot of fun to watch or talk to, and I do think they are going to contend for that four spot, but you can't count out Lavaca. You mentioned Greenland's quarterback moved. Cedarville, they were kind of rolling for a little bit there, and then it kind of dropped down, and I feel like they're coming back a little bit now, trying to make some noise. So uh, it's going to be fun to see who gets the four spot. It's going to be competitive in that one.
Really think when you're looking at that, it's Hackett and Lavaca are probably
Mm,
your two teams there. West Fork, new coach. I really don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but West Fork is a team that I think
they have
they
their
can
years.
they can benefit from just new energy in the building. We talked to them at Fayetteville. They felt good. Everybody feels good right now, though,
Yeah, it's
right? I mean,
talking season.
it is fun when you talk to these teams and these coaches because they haven't lost a game yet. Everybody feels optimistic about what they do. So anyway, so let's talk about who we feel. I'm going to go with Boonville 1, Charleston 2, Mansfield 3. I'm going to go Hackett number 4. And then of course you've got 5 playoff spots there. So I'll throw Lavaca in as your 5th playoff spot there. That's my top 5 for 3A1.
That mirrors me. That's exactly what I have.
Yeah, I like Boonville at 1, Charleston at 2, Mansfield at 3, and then Lavaca and Hackett kind of interchangeable there at 4 and 5, but I would take Hackett at 4 and Lavaca at 5.
I think that's a consensus across the board here. 3A2 is a conference that probably doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. Salem came out of it as state champions last year. But really, when you look at this conference, you've got a very good Mayflower team, a very good Atkins team that might be a little underrated this year, a Melbourne team that has been very good over the years themselves. I mean, that's 4 really good ones there. Quitman has had their moments in the last
Right.
few years. Mountain View has been successful as well. So the 3A2 conference probably doesn't get the looks that it deserves, but it is a deep conference.
Yeah, this year especially, I feel like Mayflower and Atkins are extremely good. I think Atkins returns like I want to say 18 starters back from an 8-win team last year. They're definitely gonna compete in that conference for that 2 spot. I definitely have Salem at 1. Um, Coach left and came over to Ozark. He just one of the best, but the coach that stayed there, I'm trying to remember his name. You
Billy
got
Weber.
yeah, Weber. Hall of Fame coach out of the state of Missouri, coached up there for like I want to say like 22 years, and he's taken over. He's been the OC the last 3 years. They run the veer, so they're going to be very familiar offensively with what they've been doing. They return almost everybody. They return like 17 or 18 starters um, off a team that won a state championship. I mean, it is going to be a change with their head coach leaving, Josh Watson, but they're still. I mean, they are loaded for sure. So I can't take anybody over them. I think Salem's definitely winning the conference. They got a chance to win the state championship and be the defending, back to back. So, but I like Atkins in the 2 spot and just above Mayflower this year. I've actually got them at 2, Mayflower at 3. That's going to be fun to watch. See who wins the 2 spot because it could be either one of them. And then after that, I think it's probably Melbourne right above Quitman.
Yeah, I like Salem in this conference as well. It's going to be hard to pick against them. To be the best, you have to beat the best. And we've kind of talked about that with a lot of us who like Fordyce, kind of why we
Hmm.
didn't rank Fordyce above Salem because Salem's got, like you said, 17, 18 starters coming back, and Weber's won 173 games as a head coach,
Right.
not in
A Hall
Arkansas,
of
but
Fame
yeah, he's a Hall of Fame
coach.
coach.
2019
Right.
Yeah,
inductee in Missouri
yeah.
Coaches Hall of Fame.
But
So
can you imagine what kind of pressure it is to take over a program that just won the state championship and now you're the guy, even, and you're a Hall of Fame guy, so that people have expectations of that. Anything that's shorter than a state championship for Salem this year is a little bit of a disappointment for them.
I think the fact that he's been the OC for the last 3 years really is a feather
Yeah,
in the cap. I think that's going to be a much easier transition than someone who's not been in like we talked about it with Murfreesboro in the
right,
2A. Turley's coming back, but he hasn't been on he's just, I think he's been the AD, but he's not been the on an actual coach.
right.
So it's a little bit different feel there. So I think this really helps. Now that doesn't always work out. We remember Paul Petrino at Arkansas, 2012 after Bobby was gone. So you know,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know that that's funny to say in some ways,
yeah,
but
and
at the
I and
same time, the chemistry and the makeup of the team is different. It's different with the kids, it's different with the coach. And we know Salem's going to be good. We know they're going to be tough. We know that they're going to be right there in the mix. The question is going to be at the end of the day, can they go all the way and do it again?
it's a lot of pressure.
Because there are going to be people that will say, "Hey, well, if Coach Watson hadn't left, we probably would have done it again." You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's always something that you're gonna have to overcome as you go into this and try to prove it again. But they've definitely got the returners to do it. They got the same OC now, the head coach running the show. There'll be some differences of things that he wants to do. So it's going to be fun to see how it all pans out. But Salem easily the pick in the conference,
yeah,
if not state.
yeah. And then you have Atkins and Mayflower. Coach Emerson and Coach Dobbs, I think, two of the best coaches in the state, because of what Coach Dobbs was able to do last year on that Atkins team that had been down for a number of years. Really, they had some. I feel like they had some years, maybe around 2020 and 2021, where they were just okay. They weren't winning state, but they weren't losing a lot. I mean, it was just they were just kind of in the middle of the pack, and now I think they have a chance to really be a conference contender this year. The hard part is, and you wouldn't have an argument picking them at the top of the conference if the defending state champs weren't in that conference,
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Atkins is underrated this year. Atkins is a team that is going to be good. Last year Atkins won the first round playoff game at Perryville. Perryville was a good team.
Yeah.
Then they got the tough draw of having to go from there to Bismarck, and it was an unwinnable game really when it comes down to it. I could see Atkins advancing out a couple rounds for sure in the playoffs this year, and with the right draw, maybe even further than that. I think that they have a team that can be there when you have the returning quarterback, you have the returning running back. They've got a very good offense. They're going to be tough to stop. I really like them. I think
Yeah.
they've got a chance to be pretty good.
They were able to beat Mayflower last year 29-22, and it was at
Yeah.
Mayflower. Or, I'm sorry, it was at home. So this year they're going to have to go to Mayflower. But they just 18 returning starters, something close to that.
Hmm.
They, I mean, I got to take them too. I got to take them right above
Yeah.
Mayflower. And of course, Mayflower is a team that has dropped around the rankings here and there, but I'm talking about the classifications.
Yeah.
But
Eh,
they're very good. They go under the radar a lot as
yeah.
well. Last year we were pretty high on them,
Well, let me
early.
add this to what you're saying. Mayflower in any other conference classification classification would be a top 10 team most likely. If you just take the equivalent of Mayflower and you throw them into 4A, they're a top 10 team. If you take the equivalent of Mayflower, you throw them into 5A, they're a top 10 team. In the 3A, because it's so deep, they don't make the top 10.
Well,
Well, look at Atkins too. Last year, they lost a game to Quitman they should not have lost,
right,
and it was a close game. Came down to the wire a little bit, but
52-45.
yeah. So, and I remember watching the tail end of that game because we heard it was close. Decided to look at it, and they should not have lost
And
that game. There were a couple. It's one of those things where the ball bounces a different way than Atkins wins that ball game. But they could have beat Comic Christian last year too. I mean, they lost on a missed field goal at the end of the game and lost 27-24 to the 14-0 state champions in 2A. So Atkins is a team that could have won two more games at least
right.
last year.
Well, last year you're talking about the equipment game they lost that we don't think they should have lost. The week before they lost at 1 point, lost to Melbourne, which was like everybody was like, "Wow, Atkins almost took down Melbourne," and we knew how good Melbourne was last year. I think that lingered over a little bit, kind of like the Boonville and Fordyce game in the playoffs. After Boonville, you know, gets that win, and then or they go down to play Fordyce and then they lose. I think it's kind of that same situation.
And that's another team that we're not mentioning right now that much is Melbourne. Melbourne is a good football team. They're going to be
Yes,
up there. Again, this conference is a battle. Now, we think that Salem is the best one right now. We think that they're there. Salem and Melbourne is a rivalry game. Number one, that's going to be a fun game to watch and to be a part of there. But when you take Salem and you say, okay, we think Salem's one. When it comes down at 2, 3, and 4 spot, that's going to be a knockdown drag out in that conference. So we like Atkins as the team that could be at the top of that. Then we feel like, and I'm saying I'm going to go with mine. Y'all can give yours. I'm going to say Atkins, Mayflower, Melbourne, and then I'm going to go with Quitman as your top five in that conference.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Salem at the top, Atkins at two, Mayflower at three. And it wouldn't shock me at all if Mayflower and Atkins switch places there because what Mayflower doesn't have is their offensive line has a few holes, but they still have some studs on the offensive line. We saw a couple of them at Little Rock. We at least saw one of them. Um, but you know, and then I would go with, um, you know, I want to go with Melbourne at four and Quitman at five, but Quitman, they've got they got a quarterback there named Jordan Morpayne who puts up numbers, but their defense has struggled. I think they're on their fourth defensive coordinator in 5 years or something like that. So that defense for Quitman might be their downfall, but I have a hard time not putting them at that five spot in the playoffs. But um, it's going to be an interesting conference. It's a battle every year, and there's a lot of teams that lose and win games they shouldn't win or lose. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I've got Salem, Atkins, Mayflower, and then it could be Quitman, but I'm going to go with Melbourne just on just the recent tradition of where they've been. Give them the edge over Quitman. After them, I mean, I think trying to remember who else in there. We've got
Episcopal,
Mountain
Mountain
View,
View.
Yellville Summit. Yellville's been down. I think they're still kind of down at the bottom right now. Um, and then Episcopal. I'd probably put Episcopal, Mountain View, Episcopal, Yellville Summit,
All right.
unless I skipped somebody in there. I might have skipped one.
All right. Well, we're going to move on now to the 3A3. And I've got to quit playing on the computer here because I was looking at something that I need to go check as far as our top 25 programs list just to make sure and double check that we've got that right. And be looking for that coming up. It will probably be out by the time this video is out that we will have the top 25 programs. We come up with a formula for the top 25
Hmm.
programs where you had a wins were 1 point, 2 points for a playoff appearance, 3 points for a conference championship, and that is if you're the 1 seed in your conference. There's no way to chase down how many ties and all that stuff. You just couldn't do it. And then 4 points for a runner-up and 5 points for a state championship. And we're going to put that out here shortly. And I
And
definitely need
that's
to
the
go back.
last 5 years. Did
That's
you
the
say
last
that?
5 years,
Yep.
2020 to 2025, the last 5 years here. 3A3, we're going to get going in this, and this one is probably your deepest conference in 3A. You've got Newport, you got Rivercrest, you got Walnut Ridge, you got Piggott, you got Osceola, Manila, and Hoxie rounding that out. I mean, that is a lot of good football teams
Hmm.
there. Very, very competitive last year. Newport really came out and man, they were really, really good early in the year. A lot of people thought that they would contend for the state championship. They kind of fizzled out toward
Yep.
the end, not quite as good as everybody thought they would. Rivercrest got there. Salem come and steamrolled them. I mean, it just unexpectedly. I mean, I told somebody the other day. Actually, I think it was Coach Watson that I told. I said, "Look, we should have known about Salem when they steamrolled Rivercrest as they did. That was a feat in itself." And then you've got perennials Walnut Ridge and Hoxie, which literally the two campuses are not that they're not very far from each other at all. One side of the road is Hoxie, one side of the road is Walnut Ridge. It's a very unique rivalry there. We were a part of that 2 years ago. Osceola, obviously, always a contender. Piggott, Manila, they both have they definitely have their work cut out for them in that conference because you've got such perennials in that conference.
Yeah. We'll start with Rivercrest. When you got a guy named Jaden Young, I mean, you're going to win a lot of football games. He's just an unbelievable talent. We his name came on our screen, our radar, back in the 3A state basketball tournament in at Lamar 2 years ago now,
Yep.
3 years ago now. Seems like
Yeah.
he had turned 15, like right when the tournament was starting. He was a freshman, and they put the state on notice. That team, um, he's just can do everything. He's a ball hawk on defense, but he just kind of runs the show offensively at times. They'll move him in at quarterback, to move him out at wide receiver. He kind of plays a little bit everywhere. Techland Sanders, another guy they've got that's a really good player for them. That's coming back, got a lot of experience. Hunter Ellis, another guy that I'm hearing things about. And then Jamaris Bird is a senior wide receiver, cornerback, does a little bit of everything for him. He's another guy that just a lot of weapons outside of Rivercrest. I'm pretty high on Osceola. I was able to watch them last year against Bismarck in the playoffs. They're just talented. Tyler Bell, 6 foot, 177 pounder, quarterback. He threw for 1,300 last year, ran for almost another 400. He also caught the ball, had a couple catches. I don't know if they were like quarterback throwback, halfback tosses or what happened on that, but he had a couple touchdowns. They just try to get the ball to him any way they can. Atrion Foltz, another guy, that's got a lot of speed. He's one of those Dennis Johnson kind of builds, short to the ground, bowling ball, hard to tackle, 5'7", 185 pounds, runs a 4'6", 4'5" top guy. And then Cash Span also a really good basketball player. A lot of these guys are. Tyler Bell, you remember him quite a bit. He's a stud at quarterback. But Cash Span is a guy that they love to get the ball to him in space. He can do a lot of things. So I've got Rivercrest, Osceola, and who else we got in there? I'm trying to remember. Pulling back up here. Three.
Newport.
Yeah, Newport right there after those three. And then we're looking at, let me find them again. The 3-2 here. I'm sorry.
Got
3-3.
Hoxie and Walnut
Yeah, so
Ridge.
I got Walnut Ridge next. Hoxie fell off a little bit last year. I think they had their first losing season in quite a while there. Um, I like Walnut Ridge right after Newport. That'd be my four. Manila is another team that
We got a 5.
Oh, five.
Yeah,
So
5.
I'm going with Hoxie in the 5 spot.
Yeah. I like Rivercrest a lot in this conference, but I like Osceola too. It's just two schools with really good athletes. They're always going to have good
And
athletes.
they're a lot of them are kin to each other too. They go back and forth around there. That's a big rivalry.
Yeah. And so, you just see those. I think that I would give the edge to Osceola right now, just because we know that Coach Fleming recently retired from coaching, and they'd have to adjust to having a new head coach. Now that could be a a plus for them if that new head coach ends up doing things better. Uh, but Coach Fleming did a really good job there. So,
Hmm.
especially just in regards to the win column. So at Rivercrest, um, I would give right now the conference. I would give the edge to Osceola, but Rivercrest can still make a lot of noise. Hoxie's a team that I think is going to bounce back in a big way this year. Newport, they lose Barker, the running back, Keandre Barker.
Hmm.
But I think they've got Luke Reynolds at quarterback there, who's going to put up numbers, dual threat guy. So I think that
Well, if
they'll be really good as well.
Monty Wren, is he just now a senior or is he gone? Because he's on one of my
I
rosters.
believe
I thought
he,
I thought
I
he was
believe
gone.
I think he's a senior.
Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
huge one. One of the top players in the state.
Yep.
For some reason, I've forgotten about him. I was thinking he was gone, but
Well, he did transfer to Greenwood for a minute, and
oh
then he
yeah, and he
come
came
back.
back though.
Yeah.
But that was yeah,
Um, you know,
he's
in
like a 3 4 star type guy.
right.
Big timer.
In my rankings right now, if I had to pick right now, I'm gonna say I'll go with Rivercrest at the top, and then behind them would be Osceola, Newport, Walnut Ridge, and Hoxie. I think Hoxie may have a bounce back year this year. That
Hmm.
is a really good program. Now, if you're not familiar, if you really don't pay attention to high school football in the state, you don't know Hoxie has had a lot of success
Yes.
over the last 5 years. And I just think that Coach Sears is a really good coach. And we say that there are tons of good coaches in the state of Arkansas. And one of the things that some of the coaches pointed out to me when I was talking to them in our hometown sports series was you really can't outcoach coaches anymore because everybody's on top of things.
Right.
It's really about what happens on Friday night. How do you execute on Friday night? Film is available. People are prepared. I mean, obviously, they spend more time on it now than they ever have before. So, with that being said, um, I feel like that you could see in this conference, especially, you could see a team like Hoxie or Walnut Ridge pop up there toward the top because everybody's good in
Right.
this conference.
And we've had coaches talk to us about that have coached from outside the state and then they've come into the state of Arkansas and they've said, you know, like I mean, maybe not a Texas, but most states where they come from, they're like, wow, the coaching in the state of Arkansas is actually very good. It's very good on a high school level. So, um, like you said, there's you're not. I mean, you might get like a good play call, like I got them on that one, but it's not going to be a whole game where you're just a better coach. It's all going to be about
Right,
what you did in the off season and your culture. And that makes the biggest difference. But it's not going to be because of my X's and O's, we're going to beat you night
right.
in and night out kind of thing.
Carson, did you already pick yours?
Yeah, I
Okay.
had Osceola at the top,
Yep.
followed by Rivercrest, Newport. I'm going to put Hoxie over Walnut Ridge, and then Walnut Ridge at the 5.
All right. Well, let's move on to the 3A4. This one right here, you feel like I think is probably the most cut and dried of them all. Glen Rose I'm speaking for myself here, but I think they're at the top of the heap when it comes to this conference. Um, Overall, I would say clearly the best program in the conference. They're very very good. Every year they're in the playoffs. Every year they're usually moving on in the playoffs. So they're probably when you start the conversation at 3A4, that's where you have to start.
Yeah, Glen Rose has been on their game recently, and when I talked to Coach Keener last offseason, went out to Glen Rose and talked to him. He said, "Well, we think that we're kind of a year away." Well, a year away to them apparently meant a conference championship. So, now that they have what he thinks is their foundation to really build on this year with, Gage Hood at quarterback, who's really talented, and they got some Riley Cox, I believe, is the name of their offensive lineman, who's came and talked to us at Hot Springs, who's really talented offensive lineman. They open the season with Bauxite. That's going to be a tough game for them. And then they have to play Bismarck as well. And Bismarck's not going to be, I mean, they aren't going to be as probably aren't going to be the same as they were last year, but they're not going to be a cupcake. You aren't going to be
Right.
able to
No.
walk all over them. So that's going to be tough for them. As far as conference goes, it's been Perryville and Glen Rose were kind of the ones last year. Everybody thought Perryville might steamroll everybody because they had a lot of seniors, and then Glen Rose ended up coming in and winning the conference. Paris is who a lot of people have at that 3 spot. You have Coach DJ Crane over at Danville, and people are very excited about what he could do in his second year as the head coach over there. You have Jessieville, who's usually pretty competitive. Magnet Cove, who was in 2A for a lot of years, and then Two Rivers has a new coach in Will Cox this year. So there's just a lot going on in this conference that's changed, and so while I do think that Glen Rose and Perryville will still probably be the top 2 teams, the rest of those spots really could be up for grabs. You have Cutter Morning Star, who's got a high-powered offense, and you know, it's just always going to be a battle for those last few spots in every conference, really, but this conference especially.
Yeah. Okay. I agree at the top. We all consensus on Glen Rose, but I I kind of think this conference is a little bit deeper than we may be giving them credit. I do like Paris a lot this year. They return a lot back. They're going to play, I believe it's Boonville or something. Who is it? They're
Boonville
playing,
in the
yeah,
non-conference. Yep.
early, and that's going to be fun to see where they've gotten to with a lot of starters back. Paris is a proud program. Paris is a really unique little town in Arkansas, and they definitely got a lot of pride. And I think with the returning starters they got, they're going to have um, some success this year. Jessieville, a team that went to the playoffs last year, and they returned some guys. They've
Hmm.
got some pretty good talent there, and they were the ones against Fordyce that when Cadillac Ellison got his leg hurt. They're really going to be a solid team again. So you've got Perryville. Last year I feel bad for Perryville because well, for starters, I'm from Dover, so I'm not a big Atkins fan. And they started the year off with a tough loss to Atkins, and they ended the year with a loss to
Hmm.
Atkins in the playoffs. But I feel like Perryville has. I don't know if they'll be as good as they were last year. I think they lost some pretty key guys. So I think that opens the door for a Paris and a Jessieville to possibly sneak in there. But definitely, I've got Glen Rose. I'm going to go Paris, Jessieville, Perryville. And then after that, I'm going to have to say Danville. And that's hard to say because you got Magnet Cove that you know definitely has some tradition. I don't have a lot of info on Magnet Cove, so I'll be honest
There's
about that.
this conference is more wide open when it comes to the playoffs. I think that is something that you can definitely say, and I'm kind of with you. I think Glen Rose and Perryville are your top 2, and then you've got Cutter, Magnet Cove, Paris, Danville. I think those 4, Jessieville 5. So really, when you look at the 7 of the 8 teams in the conference, you feel like can go to the playoffs. That's not something that you can say about all of them for sure.
Right.
So anyway,
And
go ahead.
Magnet Cove did upset Poland last year, so I mean I think they won one, two, three, four, five, six games, made the playoffs, lost to Boonville. So and then they played someone else that's on there. They played pretty tight. Glen Rose. They only lost to Glen Rose 49-42. So don't want to leave them off the list of the team that definitely gonna make the playoffs this year.
Absolutely. Moving on to the 3A7 here. 3A7 is a conference that I think when you talk about that conference, I think that one of the things that you really have to look at, or one of the teams, 2 of the teams you should look at, is going to be Prescott, Bismarck. Who's going to win that conference? They're at the top. But then, this conference is also fairly deep. I mean, Smackover's a team, always has good athletes. Lots of kids from El Dorado come up and play for them. Harmony Grove is a team I know you like. Coach Horsecamp over there
Oh yeah.
at Washita County, I think that they do a good job. Falk was very good last year. In fact, if you put Falk in a different conference, I think that they probably come out a little bit better than they do
Yes.
in this one. And then Centerpoint's not a bad team as well. Horatio has their years as well. So you've got some real depth here in this conference. But again, when you talk about the 3A7, I think the conversation starts with who's going to win the conference between Prescott and between Bismarck. We've talked about Bismarck a little bit. Bismarck's been really good to us at ASN. We've done, gosh, what, 6 games in 2 years over there?
Yeah, I think we did at least 4 just
I think we
last
did
year.
4 last year. They've been great to us here at ASN. Um, we did the Prescott game last year. That was a great ball game for conference supremacy there, and we just think that it's going to come down to it once again.
Yeah, I really enjoy going to Bismarck. When we went there 2 years ago, I'd never been to actually Bismarck. I think I might have drove by it, but I hadn't actually been to a game there for sure. And just a unique little town. Kind of, it's right there by Lake DeGray, just kind of nestled in the hills there. It's just, I don't know why, but it's a great spot, and it was fun to see the tradition that the Keithleys had done there, and just they just had a really good class last year.
Yeah,
Like,
let me add to that. Bismarck was not great at all
oh
before the
no,
Keithleys got there.
last
And
year was their best year in their
it,
history
well,
easily.
right. So we talked about, I think, well, at least since 1986, I think is
I
what
think
it
that was the
was.
last time they won undefeated,
Yeah,
maybe won.
but they've never made it to the state
No,
championship game.
right. It
Uh,
became the
In
best.
fact, I'm not even sure they made it to the semifinals.
I think that's
I
correct.
think,
I think the year
yeah,
before
was the
was
best
their
year. Yeah,
best year on how far they got. But yeah, so Caveman is a just a fun guy to watch. He's a guy that shot out of a cannon. We talked about him at the top of this. You know, I kind of compared him to Ben Woodfield a little bit different. But Caveman's a guy that when you first see him, you're like, okay, he's probably quicker than fast. He's not. He's fast. He's got
yeah.
straight line speed, and he's also quick too. Um, that it's just Coach Keithley's done a great job down there. They're gonna still compete, but Prescott, I know they lost their quarterback, Prater, and they lost White, who
Yeah,
was when he
unbelievable.
went to where'd he go? I know Prater went to Tulsa, and White went somewhere. And White is a guy that
Yeah,
might be one of those transfer portal guys you hear going somewhere like the SEC at some point. He is a specimen. He's like 6'4", 220, can run about a 4.5 probably. I mean, he's got all the tools to be one of those big time rush in top guys at the next level.
I'm looking him up right now, by the
Yeah,
way.
I don't know why we can't think of it off the top of
Coastal
our head. Yeah,
Carolina.
and what do? They get athletes every year. You
Hmm.
always hear about them. Of course, their baseball team played in the World Series this year in the championship against
Yeah.
those guys down south. We won't talk about that. But anyways, but yeah. So Prescott is definitely my one, and then I'm going with Bismarck right after that. Um, Falk had a really good team last year. I do think they've lost enough off of that team that's going to be tough for them to hold the three. Smack over a team that trying to get things back rolling there. And who am I missing? Horatio Center Point. It seems like there's one more in there.
You got Parker's Chapel.
Parker's Chapel.
Harmony Grove is the one that you're probably looking for.
Yes, that's it. So I really like what Coach Horsecamp does over there. He left Bearden, left them as a powerhouse, and they started out hot last year. I believe it was them that did they not upset Junction City, even though that was a step down.
Washita County, yeah,
Yeah,
they did beat
they
Junction
beat
City.
Junction City, which was a eye opener for some people at the time. Um, they didn't. I know that season didn't end exactly the way they wanted, but I remember interviewing him last year, and they had some underclassmen as well. They weren't just all seniors, so they're going to be back, and that's going to be a good pick right there for the 3 spot. I think I'm going to go with them at 3 and Falk at 4.
Yeah, I like this conference a lot. They've got a lot of strengths. You look at Prescott; they've always got really talented athletes. Obviously, you send in two guys to Group of Four schools, which for a 3A school is a huge deal.
Hmm.
To Coastal Carolina and Tulsa, and then they've still got the Brownlee. I think both Brownlee brothers are there still. Maybe just Mario, but Mario Brownlee will be a big player for them at linebacker. And then you have Bismarck and Caden Keithley, and yeah, they lose Johnny Diaz and Ben Keithley, and but Coach Keithley is going to have them rolling this year. And y'all might remember who started for them at quarterback when Ben Keithley went down last year. But I would
Okay, who it
Well,
was?
Caveman, no,
No,
no
I'm fixing to pull it up.
Preston.
Preston Stone. We'll figure it out.
We'll edit this part out. Go ahead and talk.
Anyway, there. I think that guy was not a senior last year, so I think that he'll be back maybe. But regardless, the foundation
He
that
was their
Coach,
number one receiver. I'm trying to think of his
yeah,
name.
Coach Keithley bringing back that group this year. it's going to be really interesting to see if they can replicate the success that they had last year. Um, and then you have, Parker's Chapel has a new offensive coordinator who comes over from Junction City,
Preston Hughes, by the way.
Preston Hughes. Yeah,
Yes.
he
Yep.
was really, really talented in that game against
Well,
Prescott. So,
it was very impressive that night because there was so
Oh
much
yeah.
on the line, and I think that a lot of people thought because Ben Keithley wasn't going to be there that they would lose, and
Right.
Preston Hughes just stepped up and did a fantastic job that night.
yep. And then Smackover, you got Mitchell Polk at quarterback, who was at El Dorado and was a starter there as a sophomore, and then transferred to Smackover last year and put up some really good numbers. And he was in my top 10 preseason players in 3A, as was Caden Keithley. And then you look at Harmony Grove and Center Point, who I think round out possible playoff selections from this class. And I think Smackover will be in there too, just because of who their quarterback is. But, Coach Horstkamp's going to have Harmony Grove cooking, and then Falk I think is another team that'll be really good. And Center Point's just a team that has always been in the mix the last couple of years. I remember they just barely knocked off Bigelow a couple of years ago. I think it might have been the year Bigelow won state. They
Yeah.
knocked Bigelow off in non-conference, and that was a big deal, and especially to somebody who went to the school where Bigelow's conference was. So I remember hearing about Center Point being a really talented school a lot during that season, and they just continue to build on it. And they've got guys that go play college ball from Center Point, and um, it's just this is a very balanced, strong conference. And Bismarck is going to be a question mark. Are they going to be able to replicate what they did last year? And Prescott's always good. I mean, there's just a lot you can talk about in this conference. But my five would be Prescott, Bismarck, Harmony Grove, Smackover, and Center Point in that order.
Prescott and Bismarck. Prescott host Bismarck this year. That's another big
Yeah.
point in
Hard to
that.
win.
Hard to
Hard to
win.
win down
Yeah,
there.
no doubt
Home
about
of
it.
the Curly Wolves.
That's right. So we're moving on to 3A8. Dumas made a big time run into the state playoffs last year. Um, 3 rounds in, nobody really expected that to happen. That was something that you wonder if they can build on. McGee and Risen and Fordyce. Those are usually your top. Fordyce right now, I think you got to start the conversation with them, as we feel like that they're as good of a state title contender as there is in 3A this year. So Fordyce, Risen, McGee, um, uh, Dumas, and then you've got Barton Drew Central, Lakeside, and Palestine Wheatley. Those are the teams that you feel like are kind of going to battle it out for that final playoff spot.
Yeah, Fordyce is definitely a true contender this year in not just the conference but the class. This is this is absolutely a blue bloods
Oh yeah.
conference. You have Risen, McGee, Fordyce,
Hmm.
um, and then
And Barton's in there, even
Barton.
though they've been not. You don't hear much about Barton like you used to, but
But McClellan built a dynasty there for a while. So
still a national record as far as I know.
yeah. So to me, you have those teams there. It's just you've got so much history in this conference. You have Coach Van Pascal's son, Tyler Pascal, just took over at Palestine Wheatley last season. He could build something there. Uh, Lakeside is their dual head coach situation that they're trying there, and it's just you've got Dumas, who's got a lot of good athletes every year. Good basketball team last year, I remember, and Spratt. People are talking about him being a good football player as well. So, but to me, Fordyce is just the top. But people are talking about Dumas being a surprise team too. So it's not just Spratt that people are talking about. But Fordyce to me is going to be a very, very good team, not just this year, but next year. And we kind of talked about that and hit on that a little bit. Uh, and McGee is going to be a contender. Rise is going to be a contender. And Rising kind of came out of nowhere last year
Oh yeah.
and just surprised people. So, and they've got a 1,000-yard rusher returning, and they run a flexbone style offense. So, um, that's going to be an interesting situation to watch as well. To me, that Fordyce and Rising game is going to be the decider for the conference championship. But I do have Fordyce at number one in this conference, Rising at two. I'll go with McGee at 3, Barton at 4. Actually, I'll go Dumas at 4, and then Barton at 5.
Yeah, I'm really big on Fordyce. Was big on him last year. Um, was able to interview their coach and their players, and Cadillac Ellison was there, and I mean, he's trimmed his body up. Looks like a completely different kid after coming back from the rehab from his broken leg that he sustained against Jetsonville last year in the playoffs. They beat Boonville with him on the sidelines. I mean, and we know how good that
Right.
Boonville program is. Just very high on them. Micah Gamble, he's a junior running back, plays defensive back as well. He's a guy that's going to get some big time offers. He's easily a Division II guy. I'm sure he's already got offers already. Zay Jones, another guy. Jamarcus Cranford. I mean, they've got so many wide receivers. Stroud's another one. And then there's Noah Gamble, which I think is Micah's brother, who's like a wide receiver in a like a safety or a corner. Cadillac looks like I mean, he did all that last year as a ninth grader. He's coming to a sophomore year. He looks more mobile than he was last year, and he's a guy that you don't want to ever have to go against in a 3rd and 1, short yardage situation. And then, but what I really look at, like I was talking about earlier with some other teams, like Salem and Poen. I was talking about their offensive line. They've got a bunch of guys coming back as well. Deshaun Ledbetter, Bryant Robinson, both juniors. Honestly, this is the crazy thing. We were talking about this off camera, but I think Fordyce is I mean, they're my overall favorite this year. It's hard to say that because Salem's got so much back, but Fordyce is right there with Salem as the overall. And then right after that, or my point what I was going to make was, I think they might be better next year because they're very heavy in the sophomore and junior class. So they might even be better in 2 years from now than or this time next year than they are this year. But I love what I'm getting out of Fordyce. McGee is a team that I mean, it's hard for me to take anybody over them in the 2 spot. I mean, they're extremely good. They got a lot of guys back, but Rising played Fordyce so well last year. It's hard not to pick them. They do have some weapons back from that team, like you said. They run a flex or like a flex bone or a veer top offense. Like a bone, and they they're going to be tough to beat. They've got a lot of tradition there, and they gave Fordyce everything they could take. That's going to be a huge rivalry game. Again, it is every year, but so it's going to be fun to see how it plays out. But I like Fordyce. I'm going to go McGee, and then I'm going to go Rising, and then Drew Central. We haven't talked about much. I think they're getting a little bit better, so I think they're going to be up and coming. Lakeside's always got athletes. Um, I'll go Lakeside in the 4th spot.
Ooh,
It's a tough one.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. 5 spot. Anything?
Um,
We're gonna.
unless I'm forgetting someone,
I'm gonna go back and put these like
Barton. I'll
we're
go
gonna put them
Barton.
out. We're gonna put these out just to let people throw eggs at us, right? If we
Yeah,
if we don't. So I'm gonna put
Palestine Wheelie, another
yeah,
one that's got so
yeah,
much
right.
talent every year.
I'm gonna go with Fordyce, Rising, top 2, McGee 3, 4. I'm going with Dumas, and 5. I will go with Palestine
Oh,
Wheatley.
Dumas. I forgot Dumas.
Yeah,
I didn't have him on my list written down there. So Dumas has got to be in my top. I'd give them the 4th spot.
there you go. So there's your top 5 for each of us in the 3A. We feel like the top 2 when it comes to the 3A. You've got Fordyce, I think, is one of them. Salem is another one that we like a lot. I think Boonville. I like Boonville a lot. I'll be honest with you.
Hmm.
18 seniors. Charleston is another one that I think a lot of people are high on this year. You can never count out Rivercrest and Osceola. And then Newport. Newport could make a run as well. But I think if I had to pick a state,
Bismarck, Monroe's.
yes, I think if I had to pick a state championship matchup right now, without seeing the bracket, I would say Boonville and Fordyce would be my state championship uh, pick if without bracket withholding, right? And
You,
then I'll take Fordyce as your champion.
I'm going to go Salem and Fordyce. And Boonville could easily interchange with one
Yeah,
of those two. After that, obviously Rivercrest. And I'll probably go Charleston, Bismarck, Osceola
and
right
you
after that.
going Fordyce as your champ?
Right now, that's what I would
Okay.
pick. Fordyce is my champ, and
Yeah.
that's hard to. No, just I'm not trying to tick anybody off at Salem because until you beat them, I mean, it's hard to take that pick. Really like what and I was able to interview the head coach down at Fordyce and talk to their players, so that makes it a little bit different, for me because I got a little bit more connection there. So, but that's where I'm going with Fordyce and then Salem right up there with them.
Yeah, it's hard to win state championships back to back
That's
unless your
true.
name is Buck James, Brad Boldinger, and Kevin Kelly. But it's just it's hard to repeat as champions in any sport in any league. Salem's going to have a hard time repeating because now you have that target on your back, um, and so I'm going to have to pick Fordyce to win state this year. My dark horse would be Ryzen just because if they do knock off Fordyce in conference, I think that sets them up very well. I think it's possible but not probable that they do beat Fordyce. I like Glen Rose a lot as well. I think Coach Keener knows the history of that program and knows how to build that program. Not that he needs to build it, but I mean knows how to take that program to the next
Right.
level. Um, and so I think that's going to be really interesting. I think that Bismarck with Coach Keithley, they might, people might say, well, Diaz is gone, Ben's gone, Ben
There's
Keithley's
another
gone.
Diaz now, Nate.
Yeah. And so they're going to have people step up. That's what they do. They have the next man up mentality over at Bismarck.
I
And
agree.
so they're going to figure it out.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I think that Preston Hughes being the quarterback this year, he already proved that he could win big games at quarterback. So, and he's going to be prepared.
Uh,
So, I think that team. Can you say they won't miss a beat? I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say that they're going to be very good. They're going to be formidable, and I think that they're going to be right there at that Prescott game and going to be trying to decide that conference. So, anyway, again, we want to say thank you for joining us once again. This has been our 3A preview, and we're going to have 4A, 5A, 6A previews as far and as well as 2A. So you want to make sure that you watch these previews and hear what we've got along with our rankings and as we reveal them one by one. So, for these two guys, I'm going to say so long. We'll see you here in just a little bit as we talk 4A football and beyond.